Welcome there, viewers, to another edition of your show, Chim's Talk Africa. Like I said in the beginning, our guest this week is a man who has created IT solutions that, in my opinion, have actually helped to solve some big issues in his country. Mr. John Obaro is the Managing Director and CEO of System Specs, and he's here with us in the studio. Mr. John, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jim, for inviting me.
It's so nice that you can find time out of your busy schedule to be here. And I'm excited to share about your journey because the kind of solutions through IT, information technology, and other kinds of things you've created through your company System Specs has, for me, helped to solve some things we just complain about. But first of all, John, what is System Specs?
System Specs is a company that I started about 26 years ago. And initially, we started out supporting an accounting software from the United Kingdom called Sun Systems. Then we moved on to develop a homegrown solution. We have a human resource and payroll application called Human Manager, which we were more known for before we moved on to an electronic payment product called Remitter. Now, Remitter is an electronic payment platform for payment of salaries, payment of vendors and contractors, and for collection of funds. So we see it as a platform that can empower organizations to sort of have a global view of their operations.
Remitter has become your flagship, so to say, product. It is Remitter that you have offered to the government of Nigeria for what is called the Treasury Single Account.
Yes.
And this TSL, according to what I read up, is helping the government save up to 5 billion naira. That's like $10 million every month. Is that correct?
Yeah, beyond even the financial saving, I believe the real strength of Remitter in the Treasury Single Account scheme is the transparency that it brings to the table.
That is true.
The transparency it brings to the table in the sense that government is able to know all that is flowing into the accounts. Before the Treasury Single Account, government had about 20,000 accounts scattered across different banks. It was going to be difficult for anybody to know what was happening there. But we've been able to create a window such that the relevant authorities in government can see as we speak everything that has come in today.
Cash flow.
Yes, all the cash inflow that has come in today. They can see all the outflow, not only in one ministry, but across the whole economy. So the government is in a position to know all that is going in and all that is coming out. Now, that helps to at least minimize corruption. Because one of the things that happens is that corruption thrives where there is secrecy.
Yeah, in darkness.
Where there is darkness. But when you know that somebody else can easily see, or at least trace back to see what has happened, then it becomes a little more difficult.
You know, John, that's really what excites me. In fact, you know, like before we came on camera, I was telling you how excited I was about this whole TSA thing. The fact that here we sit many times complaining. We kind of like, we cause the darkness. We say it's so dark and we're sitting there complaining about the darkness. Yet we're called to be light. And you as a Christian, inspired by God, is able to create a product like Remitter that is offered to the government, and not only is money saved, but this issue of corruption, which is widespread across Africa, I must say, is now, like you said, somehow reduced. But for me, it is Christians bringing solution. What inspired you to go, create Remitter? Where did it start from? And I know it's a team that was involved in it.
Well, I mean, the story of Remitter is we sought out seeking a solution to a problem. Incidentally, it was about the pension industry. That was where we started from. When government introduced the pension scheme, we saw that organizations would need to submit schedules on a monthly basis. They would need to make payments to the PFAs, different PFAs. They would need to make payment to different tax authorities. So we came in from our payroll perspective and said, look, press a button, one button, credit all your staff salaries in any commercial bank or any microfinance bank where they have accounts, simultaneously pay your taxes to the different state governments, and then pay pension to the different pension fund administrators. So when we finished that first date, we went in for a presentation, incidentally, and the expatriate executive director was very excited. Then towards the end, he said, but wait a minute, how do I pay my vendors? I will continue to pay them manually, and this will create a problem for me. So I'll be doing some electronically and some manually. And then we then said, come to think of it, why don't we even explore that? So on our way back to the office, we lost that deal, by the way.
Because you couldn't solve all their problems.
All that problem. So on our way back to the office, we started thinking of a solution. And that was how we now moved into vendor payments. And later on, we moved into collections. So not only are you able to make payments to your different vendors and all the people I mentioned earlier, but that on the same platform, you're able to receive payments from different people. We made it easy so that people can pay you either using their electronic cards or by walking into any bank branch in Nigeria, or by setting up a standing order, or by using their mobile phone or going to a web address. So we just made it easy for people to be able to make payment. And then you can collect and view all the collections, irrespective of where they're coming from.
And that's wonderful. And this is something that can be applicable to many other African countries.
Very much so.
Indeed, your product like Human Manager is used in several countries in Africa, if I'm correct.
Yes.
But John, I want to go back before we go on break to ask you, where did it start for you? Where did you meet Jesus Christ as a personal Lord and Savior?
That's an interesting question. For the round one of meeting the Lord, that was in my secondary school. Okay, in my secondary school, I had the privilege of having some seniors who took interest in me and invited us to fellowship, and that was my first encounter with the Lord. But by the time I got into the university, left the university, I had backslided. Okay, but by 1987, the first time around was actually in 1970. Then by 1987 was when I now came back for what you may call the final meeting, the Lord.
Final round.
And I thank God because He's been upholding me since then.
And how do you see your faith when it comes to, now here you are in the corporate world, in the marketplace. Here you are finding solutions, and at the same time, you're faced with all the different waves of things that come with being in the marketplace. How does your faith interject into this? Where is it here and this is there? Where does it come together for you?
It's difficult to imagine life for someone who has not met Christ, because you're just living what I may call a life without focus. But what my faith has done for me is that I have a bearing. I have a focus. In everything that I do, I know that I need to put God at the center of it. So that has helped me that whether I'm in my office, whether I'm in a church, in a studio, wherever I find myself, I have a bearing, I have a focus. And that has helped to shape many things in my life.
Thank you so much. We'll be going for a break now, John. But when we come back, I would want to find out, the normal temptation that comes with big corporate world, especially with the amount of pressures that come from left and right, how you have managed to keep your testimony in all this. And when we come back from this break, I would like to pose that question to you. Dear viewers, I've been talking to Mr. John Obaro, who is the CEO of System Specs. We'll be back right away. Don't go away. Thank you.
Do you have any opinions or comments on today's subject or any other issues in your country or around Africa? We would love for you to join the conversation. Please send us your comments by WhatsApp video, voice, or text message to the number on your screen, or via Facebook, Twitter, or email. We may be able to include your text, audio, or video comment on a future show.
Welcome back, dear viewers, to the second segment of our interview with Mr. John Obaro. John, thank you for being here once again.
Thank you again.
I was saying before we went on the break that one of the challenges we see, especially when people climb up the ladder, is it becomes difficult to keep your testimony. There's a lot of temptation, and I'm sure you had your own fair share of it. Especially there are laws that come with it, the vanity, the pressures, and all that. What has helped you in keeping your focus on the Lord in the midst of all of that?
You see, one thing in our society, for instance, is that many people believe you need to get involved with corruption for you to succeed in business. And earlier on in the setup of the company, God helped to assure me that you don't have to soil your hands to grow. And if you have a good start, that helps. I.e., from the very beginning, you begin to do things right. It's probably a little more challenging if you've done a lot of negative things and you now suddenly want to change your ways. Yeah. But it is still possible. Okay. But in our own case, by God's grace, we were able to make a resolution that, look, not all businesses are for us. So
you're going to have to say no to some.
So the first thing is to recognize that not all businesses are for us. The second one is, if you lose one business, it is not the end of the world. God created such a big world that if you lose one business, he can give you another one. And he's proven it over and over again in the story of System Specs. So many people don't understand why we're able to stay calm in the face of strong storms. It is because God has helped us by reassuring us in times past that if one door is shut, it is because he has a bigger one coming ahead of us. 2, because you know you cannot do things the way the world does it, then you have to be good in your job. Okay? If you're not going to give people money under the table in order to patronize you, then you better speak to the quality of what you deliver. I mean, Scripture says it that seest thou a man diligent in his work, he will stand before kings and not mere men. So we hold very strongly to that principle.
Those values.
To that value. We hold very much to it that we should do whatever we're doing very well so that anybody who does not want to patronize us, something in him will tell him that he's shortchanging himself.
He's missing out.
Yes. That's not to mean, we live in a society where sometimes they don't care about quality, but there are still people who will look out for quality. So those things encourage us to just remain true to our values.
These are very, very powerful truths. And I would say, when you said why people wonder how you manage to stay calm, I remember that in the news not too long ago, there was the Senate debating, a group of people debating if what you were getting as your remuneration for the product you gave for the TSA was proper, was it with due process? And the calm by which you were able to say, look, keep the money, look through your papers and see if we went through the correct process, and then you can pay us later. Where do you get the fortitude, the strength to say, look hundreds of millions of naira and millions of dollars in the face and say, yeah, let's check and see that what I did was correct? Where do you get that fortitude from?
We're billions of naira, by the way.
Billions of naira. Yeah. Look it in the face and say, look, and we're talking about tens of millions of dollars, and to say, look, okay, government or whoever, Senate, look through the process, see if we went through due diligence, and then pay us later. Most businessmen will go, no, and...
Well, again, this controversy came up about 2 years ago, when many people didn't understand electronic payment the way they do now, and to just hear that somebody made this much money, there was a lot of uproar. And we felt, look, we had labored on the project up to that point, we were sure of what we had done. That look, they said return money. We returned the money to government, no controversy. Within 24 hours of the request, we returned the money because we did not want the money to be the focus. We knew that we were putting in place a solution that will help this country, a solution that will create transparency, a solution that immediately gives electronic receipts for all payments to government. Before then, people were, if they're supposed to make one payment, they get one receipt, recycle the same receipt over and over again. Government is shortchanged. We made it possible such that, look, once you make a payment, you use the receipt only once. It cannot be forged. And plugged a number of leakages within the system. Before then, government was putting money, all these funds coming into government accounts that should have come into government accounts were sitting idle in commercial banks. And then these funds were being used to buy treasury bills. Government was now paying 15% interest. But you don't know that it is your own money that is being used to buy
because it was all shrouded in darkness.
Because it was all shrouded, in darkness. But with the TSA project, that was going to bring everything out. So we knew that there were strong benefits to the country. And we didn't want the money issue to becloud the benefits of the system. And by God's grace, that really helped. The options we had of going legal, we felt, look, even if you go legal, you will make money, but you will lose a business relationship. Yeah. More importantly, you will lose the opportunity to make an impact in the nation.
So that's what made you resolve and say, look, what I'll do is we just wait and see how God handles this. And God, I would say the process and the whole situation vindicated the fact that there was no cutting of corner in what you did. When you look at Africa today, John, would you say the new technologies, IT and all that, gives us a possibility of a leveling ground when it comes to economic development?
I believe it can even be more than a leveling ground. It actually creates an opportunity to leapfrog. We only need to look through a number of our problems. Technology can assist. And not just that, we may be able to penetrate way beyond Africa. So rather than just being dependent and receiving, we should be in a position to begin to give.
So we have the minds that can tackle this.
Very much.
Or are you a special case?
There are a lot of very brilliant young people that I come across, and I've been fortunate, okay? We probably came ahead of our time. This is the time for real IT benefits to Africa. And we have a lot of young people with brilliant ideas that, if well harnessed, a lot can happen in our country and continent.
But I guess the frustration of the youths, and I'll talk about even the youths in our church, is that the ideas are there, but where do you start? You don't have the connection, you don't have the... now I'm being the devil's advocate, and you go ahead and reply later, but the complaint is, where do you start? The technology is there, but the ideas are there, but the resources, the know-how of how to go about it. What do you say to the mass of youths in our continent today?
The first thing is you need to develop yourself intellectually. So you need to know what you're talking about, especially in the area of IT. You need to know what the problems you want to solve, and solve real problems. What is happening is many of our youths are talking about what you may call esoteric things, esoteric applications that solve no real problems.
Okay.
They are what we call, you create the solution first, and then you begin to look for a problem. Okay. Whereas there are lots of practical problems around us. Pick one of them. Focus on the resolution. Forget about connections. Those are part of the tricks of the devil to discourage us. If you do a good job, the connections will come to you. So we shouldn't allow ourselves to be weighed down by the possible negatives and distractions. If you keep looking at that, you will have a lot of that. But if you focus on a problem you want to solve it, develop yourself intellectually, come up with a solution, and people will be running to your path.
So the key really, once again, like we said before on this show, is let's become people that solve problems. Let our youths not see a case of making money as much as what is the problem.
It's to say, if I want simple way to start is, what are the challenges you face as a person. Okay. Try and find a solution to it. And if you can find a solution to it, chances are there are other people who have that problem. That solution you found can be commercialized. And then you can begin to provide that same solution to other people. Most of the solutions that we came up with, there were challenges that we had in system specs. You have a payroll application, you developed it, you want to pay people who used to carry paper to different banks, schedules to different banks. There must be a better way of doing this. That was how we came up with Remitter. So you keep solving some of your practical problems. We want to appraise our staff at the end of the year. You want to know who and who has performed well. We came up with an appraisal system as part of Human Manager. So whatever challenges you have in your organization, even in the church, you can create a solution for it. And you have a platform of something which you can push to other people.
That's so good. John, it's such a pleasure to have you here. We'll have to round up at this point. Unfortunately, there's so much wisdom from what you're saying. What would be your last word? When you look, we're speaking to thousands of Christians all across Africa. What do you see God saying in terms of the economic and social and political realities of Africa? What would be your last word as we round up?
Well, what I would just want to leave with everyone is that we are called to be the light. And the church should stop struggling to be exactly like the world. Especially those of us who have been called into business. We should always remember we are called to be light. We are called to be different. We should stop adopting the standards of the world and justifying the standards of the world. Let us remain what God has called us to be, and He will not fail us.
Thank you so much, John. Dear viewers, this has been such an engaging discussion. John Obaro, like I said in the beginning, is the CEO and Managing Director of System Specs. John, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been so insightful. Right. God bless you. Let's give him a round of applause.